Front Desk, Chapter 47. With Hank making money again, we no longer had to hide him. Mr. Yao was baffled when he found out what happened. How did that deadbeat sneak back in here, he wanted to know. Still, money was money, and Mr. Yao was happy to take Hank now that he had it. Hank was happy too, for it meant he could roam around the motel freely again. When I got home from school, I found him sitting up on the roof with Lupe's dad. "What you doing up there?" I called. "I was just helping Jose here with his tools," Hank said. I looked at Jose, who seemed very happy to have some company up there on the roof. "Want to hang out at the desk?" Hank asked. "No, it's okay," I said. "Stay, I'll get you guys some sodas." As Hank and Jose sipped sodas from the roof, I went back to the front desk. There were 4 messages waiting for me. Aunt Ling, Uncle Zhu, Aunt Ping, and Uncle Yang had called to say they went to the addresses I gave them, but none of them had seen the missing Thunderbird. That meant we were down to the final address, the home of Mrs. Robinson. Oh God, I hope they don't find the car there. Sometimes when I wanted something really bad, I'd ask myself what I would be willing to give up for it. For example, when I was waiting in the hotel that day my mom got beat up, I asked myself what I would be willing to give up for my mom to be okay. I decided I'd be willing to give up the essay contest. I'd rather be stuck on a bad roller coaster with my mom than on a good roller coaster by myself. Today, as I thought about Mrs. Robinson and what I would give for it not to be her, I looked down at my new jeans. I decided I would be willing to give them up just to prove Mr. Yao wrong. I looked up from my jeans to see a Chinese man running into the motel. He came by foot. He didn't have a car, which was odd in California. As soon as my mom saw him, she dropped her mop. "Zhao Zhang!" she cried. "Zhao Ying!" he exclaimed, the warmth of their affection coming through in their greeting. Zhao meant little in Chinese and was something you called dear friends. They hugged each other and jumped with joy. At dinner, I learned that Uncle Zhang and my mom used to work together in China. They were both engineers. Uncle Zhang was one of the best engineers we had. "He can fix a television in 30 seconds, my mom said, picking up slices of ham with her chopsticks and adding them to his plate. "Well, more like a minute," Uncle Zhang said. He and my mom laughed. "So when did you get here?" my dad asked. "About a year ago," Uncle Zhang said. My mom asked him what he had been doing. That's when Uncle Zhang dropped his chopsticks. "I don't know how to say this, but he shook his head. "What?" my mom asked. "What is it?" Uncle Zhang's eyes watered. "Oh, Ying, I'm in an awful mess," he said quietly. Slowly, he began to tell us what happened. Shortly after he came to America, he got a job working in a kitchen. The employer was an American guy and told all the workers that their passports and IDs would be safer with him, so he took them all away. Without their passports and IDs, the workers had no way to leave. Month after excruciating month, they put up with long hours, toiling away in a hot kitchen with virtually no pay. "We work 18 hours a day from 6 a.m. to midnight. We only get 1 day off a month," Uncle Zhang said. At night, Uncle Zhang and the other workers slept at the employer's house in a basement with no windows. "I'm basically a slave," he cried. "I only got out today because immigration came and raided us, so everyone had to flee through the secret tunnels." "What secret tunnels?" I asked. He told us that inside the restaurant there was a closet in the kitchen with a white apron. Behind the white apron there was a button. If you pushed the button, the closet wall would open up and you could crawl out. The secret tunnels led to hiding places and directly outside. "We never thought it would happen, but today immigration showed up," Uncle Zhang said. As soon as the immigration officers walked through the door, one of the waitresses came into the kitchen and put in an order for ice fried rice. That was the code word. One by one, Uncle Zhang and the other workers slipped inside the closet and crawled out through the tunnels. "When I got out, I kept looking up at the sky, so vast and blue," Uncle Zhang said. "It's been ages since I'd seen the light of day." "And how did you manage to find us?" my mom asked. Oh, that part was easy. Every Chinese waiter up and down the coast of California knows about this place. Look out for the blue cap, they say. You guys are famous. Uncle Zhang said with a wink. Then Uncle Zhang's face fell, and he got real quiet. But I have to go back. They still have my passport and ID. My mom shook her head. There's got to be something we can do. Uncle Zhang shook his head right back. It's my own fault, he said. I should never have taken the job in the first place. Why did you? Because I was desperate. Uncle Zhang swallowed hard. I got into some trouble with loan sharks. Chapter 48. Uncle Zhang had borrowed $500 from some loan sharks when he first came to America, just as Uncle Ming had. It wasn't even for myself, it was for my mom back home. She was very sick, and I thought, he could barely finish. You thought maybe if you paid for an expensive doctor, she might get better, my dad said, glancing at my mom. My mom slipped her hand into his. Uncle Zhang shook his head. It wasn't even that. She had stage 4 cancer. It had already spread. There was nothing they could do, he said. So then, his eyes grew moist, his voice shaky. I borrowed the money so she could die knowing her only son was okay out there, that I had made it in America, instead of the loser. Uncle Zhang started crying. Listen to me, you're not a loser, my dad said. None of us knew it was going to be like this. I couldn't even say goodbye, Uncle Zhang bit down on his lower lip. I was afraid if I called her, she'd hear it in my voice how much I was struggling, so I refused. No matter how many times she asked for me in the end, I refused to get on the phone with her. My mom put a hand on Uncle Zhang's shoulder. None of us said a word. I sat very still, thinking about my own secrets that I was keeping from my parents, my missing pencil, the C- lurking in my closet. I thought about my parents and how they almost never wanted to call or write to my grandparents or Shen's family. And if we called them, my mother always rushed to get off the phone. Either that or she'd put on the same voice she used at Macy's when she said, "Just looking." As the hazy sky turned into night, my parents, Uncle Zhang, and I gazed out the window, thinking of all the things we wanted to say to our parents, but couldn't. In the middle of the night, I got out of bed and went over to my mom and dad's bed. My dad was snoring peacefully. I hesitated for a second. He got so little sleep, my dad, before shaking him awake. Dad, I whispered. Huh? Did a customer come? He said, jerking his eyes open and sitting up. I'll be right there. No, Dad, it's just me, I said. I can't sleep. I keep thinking about Uncle Zhang and his passport. I know, my dad sighed. Me too. What's he going to do? I don't know, honey, my dad said. Hopefully he can meet someone soon who can help him. Like who? A lawyer, maybe? My dad said. What can a lawyer do for him? I asked. My dad thought about it. A lawyer will be able to tell his employer what's what, he said. Well, why can't we tell people what's what? I asked him. He chuckled. We can, sweetheart, but nobody's going to listen to us, he said. That's not true, I thought. Hank's new employer, he listened. My dad rolled back on his side. There's nothing we can do, sweetheart, he said. Now, try to get some sleep. I went back to my room, but I didn't get some sleep. Instead, I pulled out a piece of paper from my drawer and Mrs. T's big old dictionary thesaurus, which I still had from when I wrote Hank's letter. With a flashlight, I started writing. Dear employer, I am writing to you about your employee, Zhang Jiling. Mr. Zhang has informed me that you are in possession of his passport and ID. It is illegal to confiscate someone's passport and ID. I request your immediate return of Mr. Zhang's passport and ID. Failure to do so will result in serious consequences. I will be following up with Mr. Zhang to see if you have returned his passport and ID. Thank you for your attention. Sincerely, Mia Tang. Lawyer. I worked on the letter all night long, making sure the tone, punctuation, and syntax was all right. I read it over 5 times, and when I was pretty sure I had corrected all the grammatical mistakes, I copied it onto a clean sheet of white paper. Before I left for school, I handed Uncle Zhang the letter. This is for you, I told him. I don't know if it'll work, but it's worth a shot. I watched as his eyes danced across my letter writing. You wrote this? He asked. Well, I had a thesaurus. I said. Mia, this is incredible, he said. I blushed. I hope it works for you, Uncle Zhang, I said, hugging him. Me too, he said, clutching the letter. Me too.